put him on his back. Thurston, right foot kick, down the ground, into the in goal almost. Hodgson cuts it off. Hodgson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Johnson away.
And good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 18th of June, 2024. You're back with another episode of the Tiger Town podcast. A little bit more chipper, a little bit more buzzing tonight. And I think most people out there on the airwaves might know why. It was not spectacular. It was not glorious. We didn't lift trophies over heads, but we are back in the winners column. I'm Zach. He's Toby. As always, brought to you by Best On Ground Digital. bestongrounddigital.com, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guys. They will not steer you wrong. bestongrounddigital.com for all of your digital marketing issues, relations, whatever
Things
you want
and
in that
stuff.
space. Get onto them. How are you going, mate? Fresh out of New South Wales. Toby.
Yep. Still south of the border. Mate.
Couldn't come
I haven't
back.
had
You had to stay down there.
I did. I was staying down there for a while just to soak up all of the amazingness because, mate, that was to be part of that live. I think I'm 3-3 at Leichhardt now. So
You are the good luck charm. You and I, mate, we're going to go back for the next game.
oh, bloody oath.
So tell me, sum it up in your words. Obviously, there's a lot of Sydneyites and Tigers supporters that get to frequent this sort of situation frequently, as it were. But in recent times, they haven't been able to experience wins at Leichhardt Oval, even if you are a local down there of recent times. So tell me, mate, sum up what was the vibe like at the end of that game? Obviously, the game being the 18-10 victory over the Gold Coast Titaniums.
Mate, the vibe of the game was I had people dancing in front of me, hugging. You said that we didn't win a trophy. Felt like we did. It felt like we did. And what I will say is anyone that was at the game or anyone that was even in Sydney at that point will testify to this. It was fucking cold. We went back and we watched the game on replay because you got to. I mean, I've watched it 3 times already. Why not? But you watch on replay and the nice filters they put on the cameras and things like that show that there might have been a bit of sun there. There was no sun. There was none. It was cloudy. It was bleak. And the wind chill just cut through it, but you wouldn't know it at the end. You wouldn't know it. Everyone was on fire. It was great.
All running on adrenaline.
Oh, mate. And just a side note, that game solidified my eldest being brainwashed as a Tiger supporter.
Good.
So she hasn't taken off her jersey. We bought her a scarf and a flag, and she hasn't stopped waving that in 3 days.
Oh, I feel so sorry for her because my young fella's heading the same way. In fact, all 3 of mine are going to be the same way, whether they want to or not.
Exactly. My littlest, she'll be there eventually, but my youngest, it was complete that day.
And mate, you're lucky enough to have a run-in with one of our listeners down there. Big shout out to Matt who popped over to Toby and had a nice little yarn. That was a good little meet-up, mate.
Yeah, it was. It was mind-blowing. I was talking to him. Young bloke from Tamworth, he said, wanted to come to Leichhardt because he wasn't sure if he'd be able to see a game before it closed down. But it was crazy. I mean, you and I started doing this pod just, I guess, to put our thoughts out there and talk about something we love, which is the Tigers. At recent times, it's become a bit cathartic for us. But to have someone come up and, I guess, first recognise me and then have a good chat with me, it was awesome. And top bloke. I'm hoping all of our listeners are like him. He was a top bloke, passionate as.
Absolutely. So, and Matt, this one's for you, mate. Fuck off. We're building.
That's right.
So,
we're building.
No, it was good stuff, mate. I'm pretty jealous that you were down there and got to experience that. Look, let's not beat around the bush. We lost 9 straight and then we won a game. And we won a game against the team that was coming second last. They're now coming last. And it was somewhat of a bludger of a game. However, wins at the moment, when they're rare as hen's teeth, they all matter. So we're going to dive into this game. And whether it was a bludger or not, there's still a lot of positive to talk about. Mainly the fact that we are not coming 17th. That's nice.
That's very nice. Very nice. And I would have thought if we had have won, we would definitely be coming 15th. But yeah, Broncos decided to piss me off again.
Yeah, we are, but we are down the bottom there. And look, I actually want to make comment to how big of a victory this was from a moral standpoint, considering where the club was. And when I say where the club was, in the sentiment around in the last little period, being bashed from pillar to post, everything that's gone on with Lockie Galvin in the last couple of weeks, all our injuries and our outs that we've had heading into last weekend, the fact that our bench had a total of 3 NRL games of experience on it. You've got to go back a long way to find a team that is less experienced than the side that we put out on the weekend. You know, in that regard alone, it is a victory against all odds. And in some ways, then it doesn't particularly matter who was the opposition. The fact that they were able to get the win, considering who we had to field, you know, nothing short of 5 people who started the season in SG ball. That's under 19s for those of you playing at home. 2 debutants in the same game. You know, handful of teenagers. It's yeah, mate. I think on the surface, it's like, yeah, okay, great, nice little win. But if you actually look at who we trotted out, I think that's one of our better wins for a long time, because it was born off character, and it was born off courage, and it was finally starting to see a couple of bits and pieces of what this sleeping giant of a generation next that we've heard about for so long is to a certain degree capable of doing. And it wasn't pretty, but they got there.
Exactly. And that's, you know, watching that game, like obviously anyone that's been to a live game and then watched the game after it, you see a lot of things from a different perspective. I was obviously caught up in the atmosphere of the game. I loved everything that was going on, but when you go back and you watch the game itself, there's more to it than just a win, like you said. And I think that pleased me the most was you have a look at some of the players in terms of who we fielded and the youth that were there. And I've said this in the past, the youth is kind of driving us at the moment, no matter who we have on the field, because of that excitement and that adrenaline and that passion that they have, because, you know, obviously they've come from a kind of winning mentality, but they're also still young and they haven't really been exposed to things that, yeah, the pressures of NRL and stuff like that. And that's what was driving us. Like, you'll obviously talk a little bit more about the players themselves later on in the show, but big shout out to Big Geordie Miller. Like, he does not look out of place in first grade, and he's 19.
Yeah, and
like that's the thing. Like,
I'll throw Heath in there. I'll throw Heath in there as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was wonderful.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting trying to keep, because what is Heath primarily? He is a half, isn't he?
He's a bit of everything. Primarily a fullback, I think, but he's an extremely versatile player.
Because that's like, there's another one that's, you know, coming up the rear that I don't know where to put him.
Heath to me has perfect 14 written all over him. Craig Wing made a full career out of it. Heath Mason looks to me like a ready-made 14 who, if required, may even grow into a starting role over the top of others in time. It's hard to say. He's only 19, like a lot of these other boys, and very impressive, those two, for their debut, and they get a bit of a rest. They get to drop back to New South Wales Cup this week, which is good for them.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to overawe them, especially with, we got a couple of players back. But
yeah,
mate, it was like you said, it was more than just the W. It was more than just the W. It was for everything that has happened, especially not just with the Lockie Galvin stuff, but over the last 9 weeks. For me, it just felt like a big fuck you to everyone. It was like, this is what we've got and this is what we're building. You're saying we're doing this the wrong way. We're showing you what the next generation is going to do for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it was ugly. You know, the better teams win ugly. And I can't remember a time where we've won ugly. And when I say that, all you got to do is look at the line break stats. 9 line breaks to 2. You know, it wasn't pretty, but we took our couple of chances. And how many times have we been saying over the course of the last 2.5 years, but mainly this year, that it's moments. And on the weekend, the Titans were us, and we were who we've been coming up against for the whole year, which is we had a handful of small moments, far less opportunities than them, but we actually capitalised on them, and lo and behold, we win by a try. It's the very counter script to most of the games over the course of this year that I've been talking about.
Exactly. And that's, another thing there. It's kind of like, Benji said it as well. I think you and Benji are kind of having a nice little chat before every press conference because he kind of repeats what you say, and you repeat
We're
what he
just on
says.
a
So,
we're just on a psychic wavelength. I haven't given you the frequency yet. You need to get a bigger aerial that keeps
I've got a bigger head.
bouncing off that dome of yours, Sonny Jim.
Yeah, well, you got to have I got to have a bit of blockage in there. Too much shit gets through.
Anyway,
but yeah, even he talks about like the moments. We're just not taking those moments, and it was really good to see that for once too. Like if Benji is actually saying what he's saying to the team, which I don't feel that Benji is a liar, so he is telling them what he needs from them, and they're not listening. It felt like they were listening. It felt like, a win's a win. And again, the TV didn't do it justice how bad that weather was, how strong that wind was. And while it was ugly, the weather definitely played a huge part in that. So.
Yeah, for sure. Particularly the wind. The wind was noticeable on the weekend, and our kicking game into that win in the first half looked hard. Caesar was up against it in a lot of ways, and a lot of those kicks fell back short. I think they kind of figured out how to use it in the end. We had a couple of high ball contests that we were able to contest, and we didn't capitalise on those, but there were a couple of opportunities. And we saw Jaden Campbell obviously kick that a stellar 40-20 in the first half.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful kick with the wind.
It was
and just
off the 30, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long kick. Yeah, did it easy. And I think Appy tried one into the wind, and it was a beautiful kick too, but just pulled up short. So, yeah, the wind obviously played a big factor, and perhaps that was the Titans in the second half. They looked like they were running into a headwind. And to be honest, I think the Titans got a little bit nervous, and they started trying to chase points. So even though they weren't chasing a whole lot, I think once they got behind, they got a little bit shaky and a bit nervous and just compounded the errors that they made. But look, we'll take it. We had a couple of calls go our way, I think, as well. Not all of them. It was somewhat split and somewhat even. They missed a horrible Titans forward pass call, but I think they missed a knock-on or two of ours as well. And I think we got a couple of advantageous decisions in that regard. So, again, it's moments, and we had a few fall their way. And lo and behold, what happens when your side has a couple of things go their way, it goes a long way to victory, doesn't it? Especially talking about a couple of bomb chances from the Titans.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, watching it live, I was giving it to Ashley Klein. I was giving it to him. Because, it's just something like, whether it was a bit of a bias on my side, but I was just seeing things that we were getting pinged for and they weren't. But then I watch it back in the replay. I'm like, okay, maybe I was just sort of caught up in the passion.
Do you have a player of the match, mate, for yourself? Just watching it there live in particular, I'm interested in who stood out live for you.
Probably Steph. I think Steph stood out for me quite, especially in that second half.
It's hard to argue, mate.
Yeah, he was everywhere. He was doing everything, and he was tackling hard. Steph's got a silly penalty in him every game where he's holding the ball when he shouldn't be, or he's offside or anything. He was controlled. He was composed. It's hard to
Here's his stats for you. 18 runs, 206 running meters.
Jesus.
75 post-contact meters. And he did all that in 57 minutes. So played high minutes, but not crazy high minutes. It's similar minutes to
I think he played majority of those in the second half too.
Yeah. So just an absolutely phenomenal performance. And look, he is just another Lachlan Galvin in terms of needing to believe in the vision of this club. And he showed on the weekend that he can be that person to lead us forward. I'm just hoping that, there's a bit of some good news stories heading the club's way over the back end of the season, and we do actually see him stick around. I haven't lost hope at all. And look, if he keeps putting up those types of performances, those are nothing short of elite. He made a clean break running over the top of people, and he was bumping people left, right, and centre. breaking the line. He was absolutely stellar. So well done, Stefano. That was your best game in a Tigers jersey, and you've had some good ones at the start of the year.
Exactly. And that's, it's funny, like, I'm still of the mind that the front row is one of the most easily replaceable positions. If you have a simple strategy, you've got those game breakers that have that offload in them, or the late step of the line, or things like that. But you can generally find a big body in the rugby league world that can take that spot. Not a Matthew Bell kind of spot that you want, but a spot that you can.
And there's your freaks, but it changes all the time. At the moment, who's at the top of the pile? Fisher Harris, AFB, Payne Haas.
Yep.
You rewind 5 to 7 years, it was Bromwich, even Woodsy at one point. So and you go back further, it's Sivanasiva and Webke, and then before that was Chief and Spud. So it's you mentioned Lazarus in there as well. I think the props tend to cycle. In terms of who's at the top of the pack. So I take your point. He is replaceable, but
I hadn't actually finished my point.
Oh, did I cut you off, did I?
You did, yeah.
Well, you were very patient and polite about it.
I was.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, like I said, I still think prop is a very replaceable position, but when people put up those sort of numbers, it's ones that you want to hold on to.
Yeah.
It's ones that if they put in those performances. Now, if they put in those performances consistently as well, that's the big thing too. Like, can he back it up this week?
Exactly.
Because he's been very down in terms of generally his output over the last 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And what might have lit a fire up his ass, I don't know. But if he can back it up continuously, I'd be very disappointed if he left, because he is somebody that we both viewed as potential future captain of the side. We thought he could definitely take that role.
This Steph on the weekend is up there with the top props in the game easily.
Yeah.
It's just, like you said, it's the challenge of him maturing into being able to produce this. And not every week. I don't expect him to run for 200 metres every week, but at least within the same ballpark in terms of that sort of output. The best teams, the top 4 teams, always have a pack leader.
Yeah.
And we, for a while, haven't really had ours. You have to go back a long way to find one. Ellis, your favourite, obviously.
Woodsy.
Yeah, and then there was Woodsy as well in there at one point, and he carried us for a long time. And he's the guy. He's the most mature of that younger wave at 24 years of age. He's just about to come into the best years of his career. And he just has to believe in the club. The forwards around it, he's just got to take one look over his shoulder and see who else is already here, but who's coming up next. He's playing with the likes of Fanua Pole, Clemmer for another couple of seasons at this stage at least. He's got Sione Faina that's getting some more time. And then he was able to play alongside Geordie Miller on the weekend. He's got Kit Lalali'i, that's another lock/prop middle, who's on the bench this weekend as well. So I think I was wondering whether it coincided with the fact that last week his manager and he decided to put negotiations on hold for a while. It clearly has been something that has been affecting his performances, and maybe just putting it out of there for a while has been a positive for his playing performance. I'm not of the belief, like, he may still well go, and maybe that's still the most likely thing to happen. But I'm of the belief that simply by putting contract negotiations on hold, it's not a matter of saying we definitely won't re-sign, we can't wait to go to market. I think he still will go to market, but I don't think it's all doom and gloom in that regard. But I think we've got to show him over the back end of the year, before he goes to market, that, or effectively will be after number 3 if he doesn't get picked, but effectively that, we've got to win him over. And we were able to do it with Galvin and talk him around and sell him of that vision by all reports. Not only us, but people outside of the club in their commentary of that too. And Steph's a bit different, but look, if I think he believes in the way we're going, mate, I don't think he has any dramas. He just doesn't want to be the next Brooks, stuck in an underperforming club.
And that's, I guess, one of the things that I guess every rugby league player has to sort of weigh up eventually. Is it money or is it your legacy? Because unfortunately, Brooks's legacy is he's now the longest. He's the longest the longest serving first grader to never play finals, and that's not really a legacy that you want.
And look, Manly are no certainties this year either.
They did put a bloody good performance on the weekend, but
They did, but that's the other side of the coin, though, and I think that's part of what the discussion was about when it talks to Galvin. I know we've segued into that. I'm happy to go there for now, but uh, as it stands at the moment, they're sitting in eighth position, but it's a bit of a logjam around that, and um, yeah, there's no guarantees. Yeah, there's no guarantees that if say a Galvin or a Steph were to leave, that other side that they're planning on going to is going to win a premiership. You know, the most bankable team, obviously, lately has been Penrith, and they're just about as bankable as you get in the NRL in terms of premiership contenders. But even they are sliding. They've come right back to the pack, and again, they lose Jerome next year. They lose Fisher Harris next year. So, you know, if you were to go to a Panthers, if you were to go to a Roosters, so how long since the Roosters have won a title? It's been a few years now. There's no guarantees. So if you're leaving, you talk about legacy. And I think that's what the comment in the papers today in relation to what Andrew Johns had said to Galvin specifically was there's no greater legacy than dragging a side out of the mire and up to the penthouse and bringing them out of a long period of underperforming.
Yeah. I think reading that article kind of pleased me a little bit too, because he had every option of talking to him and convincing him to go to the Knights as well. He didn't do a Anthony Minicello and convince him to go somewhere else. So
I think what these ex-players realise, many of them, is that, and you didn't hear a whole lot of ex-players saying, yeah, he should just go to a better club, did you? Gordon Tallis.
It was all the
reporters. You had Gordon Tallis sort of arguing the counter. Braith sort of argued the counter. Then you had Andrew Johns come out. I heard Scott Sattler on the radio. I heard Mark Geyer on the radio. I heard, who else? I think it was Woodsy was talking about it, which you understand with his Tigers ties. And there was probably more out there as well, but the mantra was the same. And it's the sort of thing that we were talking about, which was rugby league is built on hard work, and it's built on the underdog, and it's built on building and working together as a crew with your mates to bring success. You compare it to a lot of those other American sports, and it's just cattle trading. You're right into your basketball and your NFL and whatnot, and people will
Celtics.
talent. Hey,
go the Celtics.
Yeah, whatever.
2024 champions week.
They beat the Mavericks, mate.
Yeah, so still doesn't matter. We beat the Titans. A win's a win, and a championship's a championship.
Luka's not even that good, mate. He wouldn't make B grade Brisbane.
Sorry, how did the Cavs go?
No comment. Anyway, we're in American sport where top talent will just get traded across, and they'll go and chase rings and all that sort of stuff as well. And yeah, look, we're in the weeds a little bit with it. I'm a firm believer in that. You've said to me before that I tend to lean towards underdogs, and that's just maybe a personality trait of mine, maybe why I've suffered supporting the sides that I support over the years. But that's just what you like to see. And, in regards to Stefano particularly, let's hope that he can see a similar outlook. And look, if anybody's going to be able to convince him of that, it's going to be Richo, and to a lesser extent Benji, I think. So we'll see where that heads.
But here's the thing that I guess, we obviously have been in the doldrums for a while now. Steph's been part of that for a while. But still at the start of the year, he came out publicly and said, I want to be a one-club player. This club's been amazing to me, everything like that. And it's not like anything's really changed from when he said that. We weren't winning games before he said that. The youth was still coming through. He still wanted to lead them. So that makes me wonder who's been in his ear. So,
yeah. Well, there's that. But there's also the fact that was at the start of the year when spirit and hope and positivity was high, and we had some new people come in this year like we did last year, and so there was a lot of promise. There's always a lot of hype. We know we all fall for it at the start of every year. We then went on to lose 9 straight, and he's one of the few, touch wood, that stayed uninjured, which means he's carried a lot of the load in that time. And 9 straight's going to squash any hope that you had, and maybe there's only so many times that you can get yourself back up in terms of positivity for outlook. And like you said, he's done it for a few years in a row, and maybe this was the third time as a charm, and he's just gone, you know what? If this is the way it's going to be every year on year, I can't do it. Or at least, part of some of his thoughts. So I hear what you're saying, but
it's hard to judge him for that either, is it?
No, it's not, but I'm not a big fan of when people say, can you blame them? Yeah, bloody oath I can blame them. People who jump ship, it's taking the easy option, stay and build something. As I like to say, mate, fuck off, we're building.
Yeah, but I didn't say can you blame them. I said it's hard to judge them.
No, I'm just segueing into what other
Yeah, I know.
people say.
I know, that's why I didn't say it.
And I'm not telling Steph to fuck off, we're building, by the way. He can stay.
Hey,
Everyone else.
we'll tell everyone that wants him, fuck off. We're building with
Correct.
Steph.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. I might spray paint that across the centre of excellence and then I'd probably get arrested for that. Shouldn't do that.
Yeah, but it'd be worth it.
Right, mate, let's jump into some player breakdowns really quick. We've talked about a bunch of players, so we won't retouch on those. Naden, mate, largely unsighted for me, but generally did his job, I found.
I don't feel like we talked about Buller. You skipped Buller.
I'd skip Buller because he's not on my list. He's down at 21.
He is too. Yeah. Yeah, look, Naden wasn't spectacular, but he wasn't diabolical.
Mhm.
So I guess that's a win. Didn't make any really
Acceptable.
stupid decisions.
No.
I don't think he was caught out in defence very often, especially from where I was sitting, because especially in that first half, he was on our side. So, yeah, again, largely unsighted, but I think he ran for a few metres, didn't he?
Not sure. I have to have a bit of a look. He his side was largely unsighted though. He took a few carries out, as with Charlie. Yeah. So yes, 67 running meters from 7 runs. So not a great deal of involvement. Same with Staines. I mean, Staines had a lot of carries out of the backfield. I thought Staines was pretty decent.
Yeah, so did I actually. I thought Staines was.
We'll get to him in a sec.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, with Naden, was the fact that he didn't make any stupid mistakes, which was good. So just came in and essentially did his job. I think he missed a tackle or two, and there was a read or two that was a bit hairy going. But outside of that, he was okay.
Yeah, like I said, if he doesn't get sin-binned and make a stupid fuck up, it's a win.
Now I'm looking at the stats list because they're all out of order because of how the changes work. So I'll go back to Buller now. Buller I thought was solid and
205 metres or something, didn't he?
205 metres. He didn't have his best game. There was a mistake or two or a bobble or two in there, but I thought that he gets undersold a little bit for some of the creativity and attack. There was 2 moments I noticed rewatching the game. There's one where he nearly poked his head through and popped it to Sol on the outside. And there was another moment where he did make space for Fartape again, where Sami got him in the corner, except Sol sort of gave up on the tackle and didn't try to beat him or fend him or anything. It was a weird sort of surrender, and as we lost possession. But
I'm pretty certain he was close to the sideline and it was slippery.
Yeah, no, it was, and I was looking at it, but when you watch the replay, ball's in the wrong hand. He doesn't shift, he doesn't attempt to fend or step or anything. He actually yields, and you see him slow down and just tighten up for impact. So yeah, it was a weird sort of thing.
Okay.
If you get a chance, watch it again. But
yeah,
there's not much he could do, but yeah, you'd expect to see. But anyway, I thought that he was relatively quiet, but he's continuing to chime in different moments, and he's starting to compete a little bit more on high balls, and he's there or thereabouts. So I think sooner or later we're going to see a couple of things fall his way.
Yeah, no, the one thing I did notice was how often he was competing for those high balls. He wasn't just sitting there waiting to make the tackle. He was trying to make a play for it every single time, and that was really pleasing. A couple of those mistakes, and again, the one thing that the TV did not show is how bad that weather was. So a lot of those ones where the ball was sort of at the ground and it just popped out. That happens a lot in wet weather. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to blame him in those conditions, isn't it?
It is.
So then we had mate Sol Fartape. I'll go to the other wing who stood in for wing. He and Olam for mine had a few defensive issues, obviously early on that side. Caesar coming back was very eager, and that's all well and good. But those breaks early in the very first half, where they did 2 in quick succession, it was a concern because on both times Olam didn't match Caesar and come out. They then sorted it out in the second half and they looked much better. I think outside of that, Sol had some good carries and whatnot and a little fumble or two. But yeah, look, he was solid, if not spectacular.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm kind of putting it in the same vein as Naden. Apart from those defensive reads, it wasn't that he was largely unsighted. It was just the fact that he did what was needed and nothing more.
Yeah. All right, mate. Jazzy Olam. Now, I think it was a game of dualities with him. Obviously, he had those couple of defensive issues very early, I think. And when I say defensive issues, it was just more of him being a cog in that machine on that edge, as opposed to just his deficiencies. But obviously, he made up for it, mate, in the try scoring department,
And the
and
kiss to the camera.
really tightened that defensive edge up, I thought, in the second half, and really sort of frightened him into going too much to that edge.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have anything to match to that because it's exact same thoughts about him. So I think he had some of the typical Juzzy tough runs as well. So, but yeah, everyone loved the kiss at the end. It was great. That was the corner we were standing in too. So I say he looked directly at me and kissed me.
Blowing it at you. Yeah, that's odd, but anyway. So I jumped in a Naden before, who ended up playing centre, and then we had Charlie Staines on the wing. So Staines, we briefly mentioned him before. I'll just say that I thought Staines played really well in terms of his limited access. I thought his carries out of the backfield were really good. He's running at the defensive line quite quick in those early tackles, and he's making an extra 2 or 3 metres than some others do in terms of their approach out of the backfield. So, yeah, I think it looks to me like he's getting a bit more confidence in contact back, and I think that's a huge thing because it means a good 10, 20, 30 running metres extra per game for him, I think.
Yeah, no, he was, at times he was running harder than our forwards. So, very happy with that.
All right, mate. What'd you make of Caesar's return?
Not as intelligent as I would have liked, if that makes sense. I feel like my brother and I were both at the game, and we were talking about the second half, and we're like, Caesar's got to utilise this wind. He's got to make sure that he's, trying to kick for those sidelines, get those early 40-20s, really match that, because we were down at halftime as well. And I just don't feel like it was a controlled kicking game at all. And then that was that really stupid kick to where it went, got caught in goals.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
I'm just like, I think that it was, he did a couple of okay things, but I think it was not a solid halfback game.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I like what he did in defence, despite the fact it opened us up a little bit early by accident, because I like his intent. I think he's actually very good at flying out and shutting down plays. And he really leads as a senior head. He leads a bit of intensity in defence oftentimes. His mantra on the weekend was obviously to kick us around the park, and it's hard into that wind in the first half. I thought he did his best. I thought his kicking game over the course of the game was okay. I thought he had quite a few kicks that actually found ground, not like Brooks, who for 8 straight years kicked it down the throat of everybody.
End on end.
Yeah, but the distance wasn't maybe quite there. And then, like you said, there was a couple of that were a bit average, and he didn't really kick smart in that second half. He didn't use the breeze to his advantage as much as I would have liked. And so it always looks to me like Caesar is a brilliant kicker, but of late the execution hasn't been quite there. But yeah, the one that you mentioned in the in goal, I was pretty annoyed by that, because we were right on top at that point. That was a really key chance in the game. And
the issue was too,
can't be making those errors.
He does that. He puts that kick on the ground, and either we pounce on it or we put a lot of pressure on their back three.
And the angle he was coming from memory was around the posts ish sort of thing too. So it would have been a mad scramble in that situation. So yeah, disappointing, but he does navigate us around the field a bit, and I think he'll be better for the run this coming week as well. Happy at 7, mate. Surprisingly for me, I thought he was not as involved as I thought he was going to be.
I feel like he wasn't. Appy goes through these phases, I feel like, especially with us over the last 2 years, where he has a couple of games, or has quite a few games, where he feels he needs to put us on his shoulders and carry them. And then other games, he relies on his players to do what needs to be done, and he did a bit of that this game.
Yeah, he more played his role, I think. I agree. Yeah. Did a bit of kicking, didn't overplay his hand, didn't overcall all the last tackle plays. He wasn't the only option. He had his quintessential and weekly duck and go, which I don't know how defences still fall for it. He nearly gets through every time he does that. Maybe it's because when he ducks, he's only 1.5 feet off the ground.
And he times it to perfection too, because he usually does it when they're fatigued in the middle.
Absolutely, yeah. But had a nice try assist for the last one there with Pole. Yeah, which was nice to see.
In our corner as well. It was great.
Yeah. And as always with Appy, and actually Caesar was worse in this fact, but tackle always misses a few tackles, Appy. So, but I guess it was hidden well. Didn't have to do as much work, I would argue, playing halfback this week, and then obviously into hooker at the end. But yeah, 29 tackles, missed 10.
Oh, wow.
Aiden Caesar was 11 made, 6 missed, and 1 ineffective, which is actually 61%. But like I said, Caesar's defensive style, particularly on an edge, on a swing, is a disruptor. And so even if he doesn't make the tackle, he disrupts the play, which can sometimes be just as beneficial. Obviously, you want a hit and stick. But all right, mate, let's keep moving. So Steph, we spoke about Steph. Absolutely stellar, spectacular. If that's the player that Steph is moving towards being on a more consistent basis, then up that offer, because he needs to be our pack leader, and fingers crossed that he starts believing that too. Towel, mate. TDS.
He had a couple of silly passes from dummy half, but all in all, I was pretty happy with his performance.
Yeah, first starting role, he did a great job. Young fella coming back in, and he's only played a handful of games and bit part minutes as well in Reggie since he came back from an injury himself, and I thought he played really well for a kid who's still 19, still undersized, still young, starting hooker in the middle.
Yep, no, I agree. I think the thing that kind of pleased me most was I saw this when I think it might have been the first half, and I don't know why I was watching so intently, but I was. He actually had a bit of a go at Appy for not being in the right place. I'm like, that shows a bit of confidence in a kid that can tell you captain, an international, a state of origin rep, 3-time premiership winner, what to do. So I like that.
Yeah, not only that, but it.
Sorry, mate, you've muted yourself. You've muted yourself.
Apologies. It shows that I said what I was saying was not only that, but it shows that he trusts. He trusts or knows his place within the side. So he doesn't feel out of place anymore, and he's in a position to be able to dictate to the fellow players, regardless if it's Appy Coruscant, multiple premiership winner, state of origin player, international player, or if it's another junior making their debut. So, pleasing to see, mate. I'm just going to go off the team list now. So I got Pole next. I thought Pole sort of did a lot of the behind-the-scenes work. He ran a lot of meters. He looked dangerous with his footwork. He obviously had that great little capitalised try, game-winning try. What am I trying to say? Game winner. And so overall, I thought he was really good. I think he's coming along really well and getting better by the game. I still have concerns about his defence. And
that's what I was saying too. That was what I was thinking.
When Foran sliced through and gave it to Campbell, I watched that several times, and it was one part Matamua, but I still believe that Pole struggles with being in a uniform line, as in he's either slightly deep or slightly up, and people just take advantage of it. It's happened a lot. And so he's just got to be aware of the boys around him, because if you're laterally right next to defenders either side, that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, no, again, usually when you give your explanations about the players, it's hard to add any more to it, because I agree. So,
well, I'm going to give you Sam Weller.
I love Sam. I don't even need to go into him. I just love Sam. Like, I don't think he's eligible for Rookie of the Year, because I think he played more games for Manly last year, but he has to go in the conversation for our best player for the awards at the end of the year. He just does all the things that he needs, and he does it well. That, like, the break that he made when he ran it Foran, like, he was running it Foran all game, direct contact, wearing him out. But you watch that one he sliced through, he put a little bit of a right foot step in. So when Foran just had to adjust, and he adjusted too late and just ran over the top of him. And then obviously passed it off to Juzzy for number 2.
He's incredible.
He's
absolutely incredible. In the first half, on those 2 breaks down our left-hand edge, he was one of 2 or 3 players that was back there to finish it off. And later in the second half, it was later in the first half where they had a break as well. he dove to shut down a dangerous play towards the very end of the half, and it was him that threw his everything at it to shut it down,
Yeah,
to
I
prevent it.
remember that.
Mate, he is an almighty footballer, and
Oh my
it's
god! Like we were
and it's
so
not out of the
excited for
box.
months.
It's not gift from God stuff as much as he is naturally talented. His effort plays, man, are unlike anything I have ever seen, ever. It's Cameron Murray levels of effort. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yep. I haven't been this excited about a back rower that we've signed since Big GE. That's how much I'm loving him. And
Oh, mate.
anyone that's listened to this podcast for a while knows that Ellis is my favorite Tigers player of all time, and that's big compliment coming from me. I say.
Mm. Yeah, no, Sam Weller, I couldn't be happier to have him at the club. He's a superstar in the making, and he'll be playing Origin inside of 3 years, in my opinion.
Yep.
All right, mate. Justin Matamua.
Really needs to work on his fitness.
Hmm.
That's my big thing. I think he's a great ball player. He can become very much a liability in defence. Really needs to either work on his fitness or work on his focus. But I think it's probably more his fitness, because that try that, like you said, that foreign came through and you said it was, partial. I say it was majority Matamua's fault. You look at when he tries to even get there, doesn't push hard, jogs.
No.
So whether it's
that was
a
poor
mentality thing or a fitness thing, he needs to work on one of the two.
Yeah, what I will say is he digs into the line, straightens better than anybody in
That's
the
what
club.
I'm saying. Like with the ball,
Yeah.
I 100% agree. But one of the things that I think you'll notice is, I think you would notice was when the game was on the line, more so from a defensive position, he pulled Matamua off and put Seyfarth in. So
yeah, Seyfarth went on. I think, he probably did replace him at that point. I think even Sione played in there for a while as well as that link man. So there were probably a few roving in through the centre, but in terms, Justin in particular, I couldn't agree more in terms of defence. I think he's still young, obviously, but fitness or focus, but he needs to work on his defensive side of the game and his defensive resolve. He looks to me to be the most technical wrestler in the side.
Okay.
You watch him in tackles, he really tries to work them over, but I worry that he doesn't yet know where that line is. And I've seen him, I don't think he did on the weekend, but I've seen him in games gone by where he does give away penalties and 6 agains because he doesn't quite get it right. So he's just got to refine his stuff, and I guess that will come with time. What I will say is that he's a former half, and his passing game and the way that he straightens the attack is brilliant. And I think it's a piece that the side can work around. But there still needs to be improvement there. And for me, to be honest, I'll jump Seyfarth for a sec. The person who's knocking on his door is Sione Fainu. And I know that he had limited minutes on the weekend, but I just see Fainu as a bit more dynamic, a bit more matured physically. So I think he can handle all that a little bit better. I think cardiovascularly, he's a bit better. We've seen the motor on Sam Weller already.
Yep.
And I think whilst his passing game is obviously not to the degree of Justin, I think that because he is a running threat with footwork, I think Sione and can pass the ball, I think he is another considerable lock option at the same stage. So, look, we're still looking for a lock. Obviously, a long-term lock. There's been a little bit of talk about Tallis Duncan maybe being in our eyesight, but personally, I can't see that with the likes of Fanutu coming through, who's still battling it out down in grade, even Kit as well. So, mate, it's going to be interesting to see long-term what happens in the lock department. But did you notice much of Sione on the weekend?
Not really, no. I saw that he did go into the lock position more as that link man when he came on, but I didn't really look too hard at him. Again, it was one of those instances where he didn't stand out. So
well, he was in the middle. He actually made more tackles than Semwella and Fanua.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
What was his effectiveness?
Mid-80s.
Okay.
So we did miss a few tackles on the weekend, and across the board, I did miss a few tackles, and I guess that's the line breaks is probably a bit of a metric related to that as well. But we scrambled really well. I know this is a tangent, but we really scrambled well. So, look, everyone was a bit sloppy, but the other side of the coin too, as much as the Titans didn't really, they did a better job. But in the wet, it can be a little bit harder to wrap people up. Sometimes people be a little bit slipperier and whatnot. So maybe that was a contributing factor. What about Seyfarth, mate? Seyfarth played 58
Much
minutes. I
improved.
didn't notice him for 58 minutes, but he ran for 143 metres and made a team high tackle count, I think, which was 35. So big effort.
I think, again, obviously I think Reuben Porter came on for started the game, and it was him coming off. And again, he's a bench player. Don't start him. He is a bench player. He gets his aggression out early, and then he settles into the game. Whereas if he's a starter, maybe he just gets too antsy and nervous about setting the tone straight away, and that's when he makes those stupid decisions. But he's a bench player, and I think he did a really good job. I think again, it's something you've said constantly, and it's something that I was saying on the weekend to excuse me, anyone that would listen. He's just like a golden retriever. Just give him a simple game plan, and he'll do the job.
Great pets, golden retrievers.
Yeah, they are. So's Alex. He's a great pet.
Some players prefer the bench role because they like to come on when there's a bit of fatigue in the game, and it sort of brings an internal confidence. And sometimes it looks as though Alex Seyfarth is a confidence-based player, and maybe that's the case there. Maybe him coming off the bench, he feels a little bit more confidence. He's got the energy level, and there's a bit of fatigue in the football game, and maybe that's playing into the intensity in which he brings on in those stints. But yeah, look, he's versatile, and we've said for him for a while, he's somewhat of a bipolar player. He can have Naden-like games, or he can have Semwella-like games. And on the weekend, he had a Semwella-like game. And if we, as always with this side for eons, it seems, if we can get consistency in performances, whether at a team or individual level, then we'll be very, very, very happy. That continues to be the challenge.
Yeah, and that's again, like I said, if he has a simple game plan, I feel like we've never ever questioned his efforts ever.
No.
We've just questioned his decisions and his football IQ. But if you give him a simple game plan and he doesn't have to overthink it, he does well.
Yep, mate. All right, last one there will be Reuben Porter. We did speak already about Geordie Miller and Heath Mason. The young boys on debut did a great job. Reuben Porter, for me, he's just the type of bloke. He sort of went about his business like a twirl does. He sort of just did his job, and that was it. Did his job well.
He did his job well, and that was it. He doesn't. I think he tackled hard. I think he held his line. I think he tightened up that side really well. I think he was on Caesar's side, so he can't control what Caesar does. But I think he tightened up. Oh no, that was maybe it was Sam's side.
He moved around a bit. Yeah, he moved around, but he was primarily in the middle, I think, on the weekend. Whereas on the weekend coming up, he's been named on an edge, which we'll talk about in a moment.
No, I'm pretty certain he started in the second row on the weekend.
Yeah, I said he played a lot. I said he moved around a bit and he played a lot of middle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, mate. Anything else you want to talk about the Titans game other than the fact that it was thoroughly enjoyable and it's nice to be back in the winner's circle?
Trying to think of something that I can say, but fuck off, we're building.
I like it. All right, speaking of which, Sunday, 23rd of June, we've got another home game against the Canberra Raiders at 4 p.m. at Campbelltown Stadium on the weekend coming up. We've got a couple of ins, which is nice. We always like ins. Now, we've still got a lot of outs, but we do have a couple coming back this week. So our team lines up like this. Jordan? I read Jordan
Miller at fullback.
Yeah, Jordan Buller and Jareem Rapana. Jareem Buller is fullback, Fatape and Charlie Staines are the wingers with Naden and Olam the centres once again. Lachlan Galvin returns from being rested and a hand injury at 5'8", with Aiden Caesar moving to halfback. That obviously moves Apasai Coruscant back to the hooking role, which is where we know and love him. Steph and Pole are the starting props with David Clemmer still out. Reuben Porter moves into second row. And as I think you said before, he was named there last week, apparently. There was so many movements, I forget. So, Porter is starting in second row along with Sam Weller, who is untouchable at the moment. Touch wood. Matamua gets another starting lock. Our bench looks like this. Talenda Silver at 14. Sione Fainu, Alex Seyfarth, and Kit Laulali'i comes in for his second career game and his first start of the season. So well done, Kit. Seems as though that we are rotating a couple of these younger guys to give them a little bit of experience. The extended bench, then, speaking of younger guys, is Heath Mason, Luke Lelalii, who turned 18 last week. Happy birthday, Luke. Adam Dwyer comes onto the extended bench after he made a successful return at halfback in New South Wales Cup on the weekend. So good to have AD back as well, and I think everybody was happy to hear that and see that. Then rounds out with Tony Sukkar and Jordan Miller is the 22.
Yep.
Mate, a good couple of ins there. What difference do you think those guys will make? We'll obviously we'll start with the obvious one being Lockie Galvin.
I think he probably adds a little bit more of creativity. I think we had two controllers in the game last week against the Titans in terms of Appy and Caesar. I think when Mason came on, he had a bit more. He ran the ball so much. Like I don't even know if he passed it, but he was taking that line on like a fat kid trying to get a cupcake. Loved it.
And he's sharp too, Heath, isn't he?
He is. So I think he adds a bit more creativity. I think one thing that I am a little bit concerned about is how much all this media shit might have got in his head. So I think, we can thank Buzz for that one. But yeah, I think that's what he adds. But again, there's a few concerns about, because he's only 18, shit can get to you pretty easily at that age, how it's going to affect his confidence.
Yeah. For me, I'm not overly worried about that because I just don't think he's that type of kid. When it was all going on, he didn't seem flustered by it at all from what we could see at fan days and what we could see in the crowd and the audience. I think he just rides high and he believes not that he believes his own height, but I think he's got a strong sense of self-belief in the way he carries himself, and I don't think it's going to bother him at all, to be perfectly frank. But I do agree with you in terms of creativity. I think that the pairing of Caesar and Galvin probably at the moment, considering they're the only pair we can really name, but considering who is at the club at the moment, is probably the first choice halves, I think you would say. Latu fully fit, we just haven't seen enough. As you know, I'm a massive fan of his, and whether or not he would unseat Galvin at the moment, I'm not sure. Such is his talent too, but probably first choice halves. And like I said, I think Caesar will continue to get us around the park, and I just think Galvin offers a little bit more in that sort of triple threat run, kick, pass option out the back.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, his deft touches at the line are pretty incredible sometimes.
Class.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
I even like the look of the forward pack at the moment, to be honest. With Pole and Steph, really, it's the young bucks are finally getting the side by side start. We've had those experienced props over the last few years with, varying amounts of success. We tried to have that old head. We had Tamau, for a few years, and then we've had Russell Packer and Madalino, and then we had obviously Clemmer lately. So the young bucks get a start, 22 and 24, I think, respectively. So it's good to see those blokes in there. Pole's really warming into it this year, I think, after a bit of a flat year last year to some degree. Outside of that, mate, I've been watching a little bit of Kit lately. I'd be keen to see how he goes. Still very raw, obviously, but he'll be a bit of a cannonball in the middle.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it'd be interesting to see how he's used. Dare say he'll just come on as probably a replacement for. Well, if you feel that maybe Sione's going to replace Matamua as that link man, so he's probably going to come into the prop rotation along with most likely Seyfarth. So yeah, it's be interesting to see how it goes. Whether he's just that little pocket rocket that just barges his way over, who knows?
Yeah, it clearly speaks to giving the young boys a taste, though, I think, doesn't it? The way they're getting rotated through.
Absolutely. It'd be, I dare say, the way he's going in New South Wales Cup, you might see Tony Sukkar soon. He's been playing quite well in New South Wales Cup. So
he's solid. He's a solid player.
Yeah.
He's a second row version of Twal, essentially.
Yeah.
On both looks and performance. He's solid.
He does look very much like Twal.
Yeah. And look, we've made 9 debutants. We've had 9 debutants this year, more than any other club. But what's being lost in that department is the fact that there are players that have played this year outside of the debutants who also have only had 1 or 2 games up their sleeve. Kit only has 1 game. He's now playing his second. That doesn't get counted in that 9. We've had the likes of Falidi play earlier in the year who only had 1 game to his name at that point too. That doesn't get counted. So as much as we've debuted people along those sort of lines, like Sam Weller as well. Sam Weller came to our club with a couple of games experience, and Matamu had only played a handful of games himself. So it's quite remarkable how youthful it is. Our squad is at the moment, in many ways, and even outside of the debutants themselves.
Yeah, and again, it's nothing that's talked about in the media. Obviously, there's been. After we talk about this game, I'd like to talk a little bit what happened on 360 because it was fantastic. But there's just been nothing about any of this. There's been nothing about. There's just been, it's the same old Tigers. I'm like, well, no, it's not. So.
All right, mate. So looking across to Canberra, they look relatively full strength, obviously barring Jamal Fogarty still out with that long-term injury with Strange and Kyo Weeks in the halves. Outside of that, they're pretty much as you would expect. Pretty experienced pack, the likes of Papali'i, Tapane, Young, who isn't playing Origin, Whitehead, Smithies. They got Trey Mooney on the bench, who's a bit of a weapon. Gula has grown into a decent player. They got strikeout wide. Savage has been having his probably best year. Timoko, much like Penasini, they're growing into the roles.
Yeah, Timoko's
and
Chris
is dangerous too. So, yeah.
And again, Rapana just seems to have an absolute blinder every time he plays us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, mate, how do you go about beating Canberra?
Well, I think you got to start with their halves because their halves are very, very young. Ethan Strange is in his first ever year. Kyo Weeks has played like maybe 4 games at Manly before coming to Canberra. And even he's not a dominant half. He's more of a 5/8 in himself. So I think if you can pressure them a lot and really get in their face, I think it'll go a long way into shutting down, or them making the right decision to their outside backs, which is their danger area for me.
Yeah, you got to take time away. They don't have a creative hooker in Danny Levi. I'll say that touch and wood. He's a great player, Danny Levi, but he's not a crafty player, and so they can't base a lot of their attack around him. Is what I'm trying to say, meaning that a lot of the attack falls back on the halves, and like you said, they are young halves, and not many young halves play the game with a lot of time. Usually, that comes with experience.
Yep.
And Lockie Galvin maybe being one of the exceptions that we've seen in a while, but. Yeah, you got to take away time because if they get it to their back line, then the back line's going to do what their back line's going to do, and it's pretty potent. If they're allowed to put kicks where they want to put kicks, Savage is a savage in the air and can jump. Kotrick's the same.
Yep.
And so there's a number of ways you can take away time, obviously, mate, isn't there? You can take away time just through kick pressure alone, or it goes back to winning that forward battle. If they're not moving forward, they don't have time by default.
Yeah. And just again, you just sort of take what I did and expanded on it. So what I said and expanded on it. So
yeah, I definitely think that's the way you go about tackling this game. We're surprisingly, and it must have been off the back of the weekend, we've got a couple of ins, but essentially we've only really got Galvin coming back into the side in terms of the youth. The rest of the youth and the inexperience that was there on the weekend is primarily there for the most part, barring a couple of the debutants we had. So we haven't exactly brought in a wealth of youth. However, we're 230 versus $1.61. Now, for me, that seems pretty short for the Tigers. I would expect it to be up around high 2s, up over 3, and the Raiders be quite a lot shorter. Make no mistake, in my opinion, with a heavy underdog in this game, we're going to have to be very good to go with the Raiders.
Yeah, well, I think maybe part of that comes down to the explosion that the Raiders had against the Dolphins last week. They were not good, and they definitely let a little bit of that, I guess, negative mentality sort of seep into them because they were not good and they were not backing up and doing what you kind of expect from a Ricky Stewart side as of late.
Against the Cowboys, you mean?
It was the Cowboys they played. No, I thought they played the Dolphins.
Who the Dolphins played? Sharks.
Yeah, Cowboys.
That tight one, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, because it was at home too. That was the thing.
Yeah.
It was at Canberra.
And that's a concern because Ricky Stewart's the type of coach that would not have slept on that and wouldn't have let his players do the same either. So,
yeah,
the likes of games like Canberra don't tend to, teams like Canberra don't tend to have shockers like that 2 weeks in a row. We can always hope.
It'd be nice if it was maybe like the downward slide of the Raiders. So it'd be nice.
So, what's your prediction, mate? What's your score prediction and a bold prediction for the game?
I ain't doing a score prediction. We won from me not doing a score prediction. So
is this your new thing, is it?
If it works this week, yes.
And if it doesn't work, you're back to score predictions next week.
Back to score predictions. So I'm just going to say we're going to win.
Okay. All right. What's your bold prediction?
I think Juzzy's going to have a man of the match performance. I think he's going to run. I think he's going to run for over 180 meters. He's going to score 2 tries again.
Good. All right. I like that. There you go. I'm going to say that Lockie Galvin's going to come back and do it on his ear, and he's just going to walk back in like none of that shit for the last couple of weeks happened. He's going to have 2 try assists.
What about the score prediction?
I'm going to say we're going to lose.
Okay. Well, one of us.
And it's not because I'm not positive. It's just realistic, and I just see this type of game as exactly the type of game that, for the longest time, we tend to lose, which is up against a somewhat beatable team who tend to have it over us, who often overperform, who we often underperform against. At the ground that we should be winning more football games at, but we often underperform against, and coming off the back of finally a bit of good news, which we rarely double down in recent times on good news. So I've just got that feeling, and I hope that I'm wrong. But the worst that can happen is that I'm right, and we do lose. So my score prediction is it's going to be 24-12, and it's just going to be another frustrating game, but I hope that I'm wrong. I just think that even though what happened on the weekend was a really good positive, and there's a lot to take out of it, as much as it was just, in some ways, like we said, opening the show, a bit of a bludger of a game, I still think that the back end of this season is going to have probably more lows than highs, and we need to get more players back than just Lockie. We need to get some of our other starters back sooner rather than later, just to plug a couple of those gaps, at least in terms of being confident around. If we get our full side back on the park, we can still beat half the competition on our day if we put it together. So at the moment, we just look too skinny to me, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, and again, I said one of us is bound to be right, but then there's also the chance of a draw. So
yeah, it's weird. I don't know if you take a draw at the moment. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, mate. That's about it. Anything else you want to add on the game or talk about with your experience on the weekend?
No, not about the weekend, but again, I wanted to sort of bring up the Buzz getting shut down on 360. It was fucking beautiful to watch. He backed into a corner so quickly. Can't give out my sources, mate. Can't give out my sources. It was so good to watch.
Braith accused him of turtling up in defence.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, I loved it. And did you see when because obviously if anyone's been living on a rock or hasn't seen it, basically Richo said at I think it was a members lunch or something like that, that for too long this club has been run by the media, by managers, and who's the coach going to be. That stops today. You shared it on our socials. And then in the 360 thing, he's like, my best mate Richo, and just looked at the camera. I was like, yeah, mate, you got called out again.
Yeah, mate, my favourite thing of that segment was basically when he tried to say, oh, look, I've copped it over this. Mate, you're trying to dismantle a club with rumours and innuendo and inaccurate information about an 18-year-old kid. You know what, Buzz? I got a line for you. Fuck off. We're building.
Yeah, that's the tagline for the next 2 years.
Right. Mate, I might jump into PSA. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
No, that's it.
Okay, as always, folks, we let you know that you can find us on all of the platforms, whether you're listening to us on that one now or not. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, and we're on Facebook and Instagram as well. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. A bit of junior stuff, I think, coming up over the next couple of weeks. We're going to turn our attention to the Flegg and New South Wales Cup sides, with a few people coming back and the Flegg boys continuing to have a great season. So hopefully we're going to get a bit of information out on a couple of those pages and those platforms as well in regards to that, and a bit of commentary along the way with that one too. Speaking of different platforms, the West Tigers Faithful and the West Tigers Podcast, two podcasts we recommend you go and have a listen to for different reasons, but all West Tigers media is good media, and both of those teams do great work. So get on over and give them a listen on all the same platforms that you can find us on. Thanks once again, to our sponsor, Best On Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com. They will not steer you wrong. Digital marketing agency that looks after the little guy. They look after us. Go look after them.
That's right.
They'll look after you too.
Yeah.
Anything digital marketing related, they are your guys. Mate, thank you for another show. You weren't back in the studio. I did say that you were going to be, but you've had a lovely extended stay down there in Bluesland.
I am. Unfortunately, I'll be back up in Maroon country for next week's Odin.
You will be. But that's all right. We'll be here to stick it to the man in that regard.
That's right.
Okay, mate. On that note, there's nothing more to say other than go the mighty West Tigers.
Up the Tigers.